Hey guys, Matt Allen here. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin. Today we have got some underwater footage for you. We're gonna watch bass eating jerkbaits and swimbaits and other reaction baits, but the core of today's video is about spring bass fishing. We're gonna look at how these fish are moving, what they're targeting, the exact baits that you can throw to maximize your time when these bass get around bait fish in the springtime. Springtime is arguably the best time of the entire year to catch your personal best bass, to catch the biggest bass you've ever seen. And there is a key way to take your odds and move them up even further. Now, we've got a video coming in a couple of days that's going to help you understand exactly where and when to be on spots so that you're maximizing your time on the water. So today we're going to glaze over that. But what I want to talk to you about today is in the springtime, there is a perfect scenario that occurs. And if you're ready for it and you're looking for it, you can smash these bass. They are coming in and they are ripe for the picking with a variety of baits. Here is that scenario. Springtime is driven by two things. Bass are moving up to spawn and they're moving up to feed. That's it. That's what drives every move that those fish make. They're very simple. You can target either one of those things and do remarkably well on the water. But if you can find where those two things come together, it is the perfect situation for you to catch giant bass. It can be difficult to find bait fish in the springtime. It's not like other times of year where it's incredibly predictable. These bass are making their move. It's predictable. They're headed to the shallows. They're headed to the backs of pockets, and they're going to make stops along the way. The bait fish, less predictable, but they are making very similar moves. And if you keep an eye out when you're on the water and you see where those two things come together, you start seeing shad in the water or other bait fish in the water, and the bass are present as they're bulking up, getting ready to spawn. It's magical. The feeding frenzies are out of this world. The feeding frenzies are just as good as you're going to see during the shad spawn or in the fall where they ball up the bait. But the difference is these are pre-spawn fish. They're fat, they're healthy, they're aggressive. They weigh the most they're going to weigh all year. This is how you catch your personal best. So let's talk about the baits. The baits are all going to revolve around flash and movement. Because again, when there's a ton of bait fish in the water, that is very distracting. The bass see this giant mob of bait and that's all they think about. That's it. They're focused on that. So you have to distract them away from that. So that's either going to take a lot of commotion or a lot of flash or a lot of vibration to move those fish away from that and to hone in on your single bait. So every bait that I'm going to throw this time of year is going to be geared towards tons of flash and vibration and movement. The spinnerbait, we've already talked about the spinnerbait. We just took an in-depth look at that, so we're going to glaze right over that. But keep a spinnerbait handy. You want to have that ready to go. At least have it in the boat. The A-rig is another, it's a given. These fish are targeting bait balls. They're chasing down bait. If they're chasing down single fish, that's fine, and you can catch them a bunch of different ways. But those bass, they're not looking for single meals this time of year. They're looking for the easy meals. They're hoping to come across a school of bait fish. And when they do, maybe you are that school of bait fish. That is the power of the A-rig. It draws in a completely different reaction than a single bait. When you're in and around schools of bait fish, same thing. You get down below that school of bait fish, you come through there, and all of a sudden those fish see one little pot of bait breaking off and they're on it. Now my biggest tip for you, if you're fishing the A-rig around bait fish, add blades to your A-rig. That is a must. Second tip, the Kitech has a very wide tail kick. Very, very wide. Doesn't have a lot of other small movement. I actually recommend changing to one of two things. That's a River to Sea D-Walker. That one just came out. I mean, just came out like in the last couple of days. We started playing with that one last week. Had some awesome results with it because it has a very different action. The other one, Reaction Innovation Skinny Dipper. Much narrower bait all the way around. It's not as fat as a Kitek, but instead of having this big wide tail kick, it has a tiny tail kick and a lot of body roll. Creates a ton of commotion. Again, you're just trying to distract these fish and show them something different. So the A-rig and the spinnerbait are great options. Other great options are gonna be the underspin. That one right there specifically, that weedless underspin 5/0 hook with a 4.8 Kitek is phenomenal because you can throw it anywhere. It's a bait that we have rigged every single day all spring long because you never know when that opportunity is going to present itself. And again, you never know when the opportunity is going to present itself. So have the baits on board with you and keep a lookout. This time of year, it's different because you're not necessarily looking for those explosions on the surface like you're gonna see late spring, summer, fall. You're typically looking for just swirls because the bass tend not to break the surface in the early spring, even when they're chasing bait. They tend to come up underneath and scoop the fish from just below the surface or drive them down deep and ambush them. So you're watching your graph for bait balls and you're looking for arches around them. And then you're looking for just minor swirls on the surface or things along the shore, grass along the shore getting pushed. All of a sudden it waves. It's because a fish turned around and tried to eat something and bumped that grass. That's the sort of thing you're looking for, the subtle differences. But if you find it and you spot a bait ball, stay with them. Even if the bass aren't eating them now, half an hour from now, an hour from now, 2 hours from now, that bait may run across a school of bass and you're gonna see the best fishing you'll see all year. Next one is the Fluke. The Fluke, we've talked about it over and over and over. The Fluke is the one that doesn't have a ton of flash, but it does have amazing movement in the water, that incredible darting and twisting action, and it just lures fish out. The benefit of the Fluke over, say, a standard jerkbait, again, is weedlessness. So I like to keep both on board. Now the jerkbait is probably, well, it's not fair to say it's my favorite spring bait. It's not, because I really enjoy throwing the glide bait and a few other things too, but man, it's close. The jerkbait catches fish almost unlike anything else. That sharp darting action, that super loud sound, that vibration, it'll call them out. When the fish are just sitting there lethargic, it'll call them out. When they're on bait fish, it'll call them out. It'll pull the fish off of an entire school of bait and get a turn because it's so loud and so aggressive. They come out and just smash them. So that is just such a prime option. And then I mentioned the glide bait, and specifically that smaller S-waver is the one that we turn to in the springtime. That slow, steady action, and then you get those sharp kicks out of it when you work that bait. It gets them. And then last but not least is the Squarebill. The Squarebill is another one. You can go so fast, you can stop and go, you can bang it into things, burn it, smash it into a rock, pause, smash it into the next rock, pause, and those fish just lash out on that thing. And even though it's got big exposed treble hooks, it's moving so quickly that those hooks are tucked in and it's behind that big square bill, they almost never snag. Because this time of year, bait can be in deep water or it can be dirt shallow. Sometimes the bass will corral it into the very back of a pocket and they'll have it up there in 6, 8, 10 inches of water. And you can't throw a bait up there and get snagged. You don't want to throw an exposed jig head in there, hook up, and now you're going to blow the entire spot. That's why you want that weedless underspin or a squarebill or a spinnerbait. If they corral them out deep, push them up into a pocket or drive them up into the back of a creek and they're holding them in 5, 10, 20 feet of water, well then you can come after them, you can let those baits drop down. You get that suspending jerkbait out over the top of them, or the S-waver, let an A-rig drop down through them. See, there's not a perfect situation where this is going to happen. You guys have to keep your eyes open this spring. Go about your everyday fishing. Go out there and have fun. Whether that is finesse fishing for you, whether you would like to go out there and throw a Ned rig or a drop shot, or you're a guy that just wants to burn up the bank throwing a spinnerbait and a chatterbait, but keep your eyes peeled, because when you come across bait, it's not if, it's when. When you cross paths with bait and you find those pre-spawn bass meeting that bait, big things are going to happen and you need to be ready. Have the baits ready. At the least have them in the boat, if not on deck, because when you find it, it is one of the most magical experiences you will have on the water, when those fish just start corralling and smashing and driving that bait. And it can last minutes, or it can last all day, or it can last days. So be prepared. Keep your eyes peeled this spring. You guys are going to have a blast. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave us a comment. If you've experienced it, let us hear about it. We'll talk to you soon.